Hello dear students, today we will discuss about the various enzymes and protein factors which take part in prokaryotic transcription. So, we take the example of E. coli. So, we know that in transcription from a DNA template a complementary RNA molecule will be produced and that we call as the messenger RNA or the mRNA. So, here what happens is an RNA synthesis. So, the enzyme can be called as an RNA synthetase. It is actually polymerizing ribonucleotides to form a new RNA chain and this is based on a DNA template. So, this RNA synthetase is also called as the RNA polymerase. It is in fact a DNA dependent RNA polymerase and it can recognize an appropriate site in the antisense strand of the DNA and that region is called as the promoter site and this RNA polymerase will bind with the promoter site and thereby it mediates the synthesis of RNA using the antisense strand of DNA as a template. Now, we come to the structure of the prokaryotic RNA polymerases. So, we take the example of E. coli RNA polymerase. The E. coli RNA polymerase is a complex protein which is made up of certain subunits. So, we can call this protein as a core RNA polymerase. So, this is the core RNA polymerase which consists of the following subunits. So, here you can see two large subunits. They are the beta and the beta dash subunits. Then you have two identical subunits. They are smaller than the beta subunits. They are called as alpha and there is a yet small omega subunit. So, all these 5 subunits together constitute the core RNA polymerase. So, a large beta dash, 2 identical alpha and 1 omega. Along with that, there is one more factor which will add to this core RNA polymerase. We should bind with this core RNA polymerase so that it becomes a complete enzyme or the holo enzyme. And this factor is called as the sigma factor. So, we go back. So, in E. coli, the polymerase is composed of the 5 polypeptide subunits known as 2 alpha, beta, beta dash and omega. And each subunit has a unique role to play. The alpha subunits, the 2 identical alpha subunits are necessary to assemble the polymerase on DNA. Then only transcription can begin because the polymerase enzyme has to bind to the DNA template. So, that is being mediated by alpha subunits. The beta subunit binds to the ribonucleotide triphosphate. What is ribonucleotide triphosphate? It is the monomer which is used for polymerizing into a new RNA molecule. So, RNA molecule is a polymer actually. It is a chain which is a polymer which is made up of monomers, that is the ribonucleotides. So, each monomer, that is the ribonucleoside triphosphate, which will become part of the new mRNA molecule, is bound to by the beta subunit. So, it is beta subunit which is binding to the ribonucleoside triphosphate, which will become part of the RNA molecule. And the beta dash is that part of the enzyme which will bind to the DNA template strand. So, once again the 2 alpha subunits, they help in assembling the polymerase enzyme, the whole polymerase enzyme on the DNA. The beta subunit binds to the ribonucleoside triphosphates which will become part of the new mRNA molecule. The beta dash will bind to the DNA template strand and the function of omega is not yet fully understood. Now, in addition to the RNA polymerase, there are some protein factors which are also involved in mediating the transcription process. They are generally called as transcription factors and these are needed for the stable binding of the RNA polymerase enzyme with the template strand of DNA, for initiation of transcription at the correct codon, and also for the final release of RNA polymerase and the RNA transcript from the template strand. So, all throughout the process protein factors are required, and one such protein factor or one such transcription factor is this sigma. So, this is a sigma. Only when sigma binds to this core RNA polymerase, then only it will become the hollow enzyme. So, sigma, what are the functions of the sigma factor? First one is that the sigma factor helps in recognition of the recognition site of the promoter region of DNA. As we have already discussed, in a prokaryotic gene or a eukaryotic gene, there will be a site called as the promoter to which the RNA polymerase comes and binds first. So, and there is a site in the promoter called as a recognition site. This recognition site of the promoter of DNA is being identified by the transcription factor sigma, and thereby it will enable this RNA polymerase to bind to that site. So, only when sigma factor binds to this RNA polymerase that this RNA polymerase can correctly bind to the promoter region, and thereby it will also initiate the transcription process. It confers transcriptional specificity such that the polymerase begins to synthesize mRNA from an appropriate initiation site. Suppose there was no sigma factor, then the core enzyme would transcribe from random sites and would produce a wrong mRNA. So, it is the sigma factor that begins to that will enable the RNA polymerase to correctly bind to the binding site of the promoter and to correctly bind to the appropriate initiation site. So, as we mentioned just now, the transcription factors, they mediate the transcription process. They can control the rate of transcription by binding to a specific DNA sequence. So, they actually bind to DNA. So, we can define the transcription factor as a protein that controls the rate of transcription of genetic information from DNA to mRNA by binding to a specific region on the DNA, typically in response to an environmental trigger or some cellular signal. So, these are proteins which bind to certain regions of DNA and thereby they will influence the rate of transcription. There are some transcription factors which activate transcription. They are called as activators. They will help the general transcription factors, the basal transcription factors like sigma or some others, and they will also help the RNA polymerase enzyme to bind to the promoter. So, such proteins are called as activators. So, here you can see an illustration of this activator protein which will help in binding of this RNA polymerase enzyme to the promoter site of the DNA. So, this is the promoter site of the gene, this is the coding region, this is the promoter site, and this activator protein will help this RNA polymerase to bind to the promoter sequence correctly. So, they can be called as activators, whereas there are some others which cause repression. So, for example, here you can see a repressor protein. It has come and bound to the operator region, thereby preventing the RNA polymerase from moving forward. So, even if the RNA polymerase binds to the promoter region, it will sometimes block the RNA polymerase from moving forward, or it can even block the binding of the RNA polymerase to the promoter. Now, so we discussed there are two types, activators and repressors, and usually the binding sites for these activators or repressors are often close to the promoter of a gene, but at some instances they can also be found in other parts of the DNA, sometimes very far away from the promoter, and still they are found to affect the transcription of the gene. So, such proteins are called as transcription factors. Now, I will take you to the example of a repressor protein which is met with in prokaryotic cells. So, here you can see a gene in prokaryotes which can be called as a lac operon. So, this is the structural gene part or the cystonic region, this is the promoter, the operator, and this promoter is the binding site for the RNA polymerase enzyme. But the transcription of this gene, the cluster of these genes is controlled by a protein which is called as a repressor. And where does this repressor bind to? The repressor will bind to this DNA just downstream of the promoter. So, this is the promoter. So, it is just binding to a region downstream of the promoter, that means which comes after the promoter region. So, when this repressor, it is bound at this region or this operator is happening, even if the RNA polymerase comes and binds to the promoter, it cannot move forward. So, it is physically blocking the RNA polymerase from transcribing the genes. So, that is how a repressor protein behaves. Thus, here we will take the case of an activator protein. This activator protein, you can call it as a CAP protein. So, this is again this lac-operon, where this is the promoter, the operator, the RNA polymerase enzyme. So, usually this gene gets activated when the glucose levels in the cell fall, and this E. coli cell should use other sugars for fuel, and this is to be activated now, the gene is to be activated. So, when the glucose supplies become limited in the cell, what happens is that the cellular level of a molecule rises, and the name of that molecule is cyclic AMP. So, what happens is when the glucose supplies become limited, this cyclic AMP will come and bind to this activator protein called as CAP. This is a positive regulator. This CAP plus cyclic AMP is a positive regulator which will bind to the operator region, and it will activate the working of this gene, lac-operon gene. So, the cyclic AMP binds to the CAP protein, a positive regulator that binds to an operator region upstream of the genes required to use other sugar sources. So, in this case, CAP can be considered as an activator. Go to the mechanism used by transcription factors by which they regulate gene expression. So, first, these transcription factors can either stabilize or block the binding of RNA polymerase to DNA, thereby activating or blocking the transcription process, as we saw earlier. Second thing is that they can catalyze the acetylation or deacetylation of histone proteins, or by recruiting other proteins to do so. So, what is meant by acetylation and deacetylation? In a cell, the DNA is associated with proteins which are called histones. In prokaryotic cells, there are non-histones. There are no histones, but non-histone proteins can also be seen. So, the structure of DNA is stabilized by these proteins. Now, what do certain transcription factors do? There are some transcription factors which can be called as histone acetyl transferases, whereas there are some which are called as histone deacetylases. We can abbreviate as HAT and HTAC. So, what do HATs do? HATs will acetylate these proteins. So, what happens? The association between the proteins and DNA will be weakened. So, the DNA is now free from these proteins and it is more accessible to transcription, or DNA is now more open. What do the histone deacetylases do? They deacetylate the histone as well as non-histone proteins and strengthens the association of DNA with these proteins, which make the DNA less accessible to transcription. So, we will just take an illustration of this, where you can see these are the histone proteins associated with DNA. Here you can see them, but this is the case of a eukaryotic cell. But I am just explaining how these two types of molecules, they influence gene transcription. So, the HATs, what do? They acetylate the histones. So, here you can see the histones are acetylated. You can see acetyl groups on the histones. This is applicable to the non-histone proteins also. So, they are acetylated, and now what happens? Their bond with DNA is now weakened. So, now the DNA is open for transcription. So, the HATs cause relaxation and you get an open chromatin which is ready for transcription. Whereas what do the HDACs do? HDACs remove the acetyl groups. So what happens? The association between these proteins and DNA increases. Now the DNA is like closed. It is a closed chromatin. So it is not open for transcription. So that is how these two proteins regulate the opening and closing up of the chromatin and thereby regulating transcription. Processes, there are certain transcription factors which recruit other molecules which are called co-activators or co-repressors to the transcription factor DNA complex, either to activate the process or to repress the process. Finishes a discussion on the transcription factors and the RNA polymerase in prokaryotes. Thank you.